What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is 13 things from the 1970s kids today will never understand. Well, we're kids today. We were born in 99.
We were.
So we're clashing ourselves as 90s kids, even though...
Well, technically we are still.
Well...
We're not millennial. We're born in
7 months for you. Millennials.
Yeah.
7 months for you. 6 months for me.
Well, no.
5 months for me. 5 months
You're
for
July
me.
and I'm April. How's that?
7 months for you?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Oh.
Mine's the 4th month.
8 months for you.
Yeah. About 5 months for you.
Yeah, let's just get into it.
Oh,
let's see if we will understand these things.
It's interesting though because our mums are 1970s.
Yeah, also that. Let's go. What we got?
There are some things that are unique to the decade that we grew up in. The 1970s was no different, having a distinct style that is easily recognizable, even to newer generations. But aside from the obvious disco and bell-bottom trends, there were more minute details that people living during that time will easily recognize.
Okay.
So here are 13 things from the 1970s that kids today would never understand. Options for watching TV were very different during the 1970s. For one, there were really only 3 TV channels plus public broadcasting.
Imagine
That's
that
right,
nowadays.
just 3.
Yeah.
No streaming services, no endless options. You'd also have to get up and manually turn the dial to change channels.
I can't imagine my mum
It was
watching that. Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
And I think now, when you think about like our parents' house, they got the big TVs and stuff.
Yeah.
I can't imagine them ever having to watch something.
Yeah, when we were growing up, I guess, yeah.
Time in which we waited for our favorite shows, which included nightly shows that were popular and Saturday morning cartoons. It was a big deal when you could pour a big bowl of cereal and binge hours of your favorite animated shows. But with the limited options on the television, it's no wonder kids spent so much time outside. Well, that and the fact that some parents made their kids go outside and play.
Yeah, definitely went outside more.
During the 70s, making a mixtape was an art form. It took patience and dedication to sit by the radio for hours.
We had this the other day, didn't we? I just can't believe how, like, we hear about it, it's on TV programs and making mixtapes. Until we heard about it, I didn't realise how incredibly hard it would have been. And fair play to people who did it, especially back then.
For the right song to be played. It didn't matter how good your timing was either, because pushing down the play and record buttons at precisely the right time still sometimes had the DJ talking over the intro. And that was just part of the charm. Cassettes had their quirks too, like when they got tangled, and you would have to use a pencil to wind them back in. Cassettes made it pretty easy to create what we know today as a playlist, and this was the first time we could listen anywhere we wanted. Did you ever run around the house and pretend you were Superman or Batman? Well, if you did during the 1970s, then you most likely had on a pair of superhero underoos. For many kids, they served a dual purpose. They were underwear and part of a costume when you were strutting around the house, feeling invincible.
Okay.
Superhero underoos were more than just clothing. They were your identity, especially the ones that matched the actual superhero outfits.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun, isn't it?
Kids can never appreciate their underwear in the same way.
I want to get Archie some underoos.
The Superman ones.
Recollection Road. During the 1970s, record stores were not just places to buy music. They were social gathering spots. Just like the mall of the 1980s, young people would hang out with friends, browse through vinyl records, and even listen to albums before they purchased them.
Oh, wow.
Store employees at this time were also music enthusiasts, and they would recommend hidden gems.
Yeah, they
it
probably
also
had the
wasn't
pack.
uncommon for you to strike up a conversation with a stranger who was into the same music as you. So the local record store was a special place, and yet another experience that is hard to replicate today. Hitchhiking during the 1970s was surprisingly easy and acceptable. It was very common to see people thumbing a ride on the side of the road. Drivers would often not hesitate to pick up hitchhikers.
I pressed one button. That is mad, isn't it?
I can't imagine stopping for someone doing that.
I love the idea of it because it's everyone just helping each other out, no matter who you are, hopping.
Yeah. But there's always that fear in the back of my mind, like, you don't actually know who you're putting in your car.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe if we didn't have Archie, I'm not as worried about it. But when we've got Archie now, I don't think I'd ever do that. But it was so common back in the day.
It's so bizarre, isn't it? Times change.
Like, fair play, because it's such a friendly thing to do, and I guess it's just like helping a stranger in the street, isn't it? Really, you don't know who they are, you can help them out, and it's good. But obviously, there is then times where that person could be dodgy.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know.
Hesitate to pick up hitchhikers, and it was seen as a way to help out a fellow traveler. There was more of a sense of camaraderie on the open road back then, and that's hard to understand in today's world.
Definitely.
But it wasn't without risk, and there was still a chance you might encounter a few weirdos.
Yeah.
And that was just part of the fun. Nowadays, it's illegal to hitch free rides in many places.
Oh, really?
But back then, it wasn't unusual to find a service member, a student, or even a hippie thumbing for a ride. When you think back to the 1970s, men had some serious style. They had manly mustaches, sideburns, big hair, and that distinct aroma of aftershave wafting around them.
Well, I haven't shaved. I need a haircut. I haven't got the muscle. Yeah, am I up to scratch?
Yeah.
It's all about the macho
You're
look,
good.
and men took their
thanks.
grooming
Good for this
very
day and age.
seriously. This was also coupled with
want you
some
to put
pretty
that up.
bold choices in clothing too. And as long as you could leave a couple of buttons undone so you could show off your hairy chest, you were good to go. Nothing quite matches the swagger men had in the 1970s. And speaking of grooming, ladies too had their own unique products to give them that 1970s look. Sun-In was all the rage, promising sun-kissed highlights. Women would spray it into their hair and head outside hoping for those perfect golden locks. And who doesn't remember the smell of Love's Baby Soft, a signature scent from the 1970s? The sweet, youthful fragrance was a defining smell that had all the girls wearing Baby Soft. But I'm not sure the ad campaign would fly today. When the telephone that hung in the kitchen rang, it was always answered. This was before caller ID, so people had no idea who was calling.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You didn't know if it was your best friend or a sales call, which meant there was a chance that you might recognize the voice on the other end and spend some time getting twisted up in the phone cord while you talked. Or you might be yelling across the house to let someone else know the call was for them.
Yeah.
Today's kids might find it unbelievable that we willingly picked up the phone without the slightest clue as to who was on the other end.
And also, if you missed the call, you had no clue who to call back.
Exactly.
I said, well, I hope I call again.
To best capture the moments in the 1970s, you absolutely needed a Polaroid camera. The idea of hitting the button and instantly getting a picture developed was gratifying, but you had to be selective because each roll of film only had a certain number of pictures. And then there was the practice of shaking the picture to help it develop faster, which was just a myth. But you couldn't take the bulky Polaroid camera with you everywhere, so there were also photo booths that were strategically placed where teenagers congregated. Places like arcades, malls, and roller rinks were ideal, so best friends and couples could capture the day with a series of goofy and fun pictures. If you were to step back in time and visit a 1970s kitchen, you'd probably find a fair share of mushroom-themed decor.
Okay,
Mushroom
how
plates,
random.
mushroom curtains, mushroom wallpaper. They were everywhere. Everything back then seemed to have an earthy aesthetic, and mushrooms must have been the perfect fungus to represent that style.
Perfect
I guess you'd call it
fungus.
charm, and every corner of the room seemed to be inspired by it. As you waited for the weekend and that special morning of cartoons, you also needed a sugary cereal to help you enjoy it. The 1970s was all about finding the best surprise toy inside the cereal box.
Ooh,
Kids would
okay.
beg their parents for a certain brand of cereal, not because of the taste, but because of the toy.
Yeah.
It may have been a silly...
Oh, did that?
You used to put a little toy at the bottom of the packets. You have to finish all the cereal to get the toy.
Well, you can just put it out.
No, not when you share cereal with 4 other people. We weren't allowed to do that. My mum.
No, I'm just saying in theory,
It was whoever
people
finished
could
the
do
cereal.
that. Oh, really? So you're just hoping you get the last bit of
I
cereal?
was definitely having extra bowls.
Yeah. Oh, there's not much cereal today.
Like, why
5
are you
bowls.
so hungry today?
Give me that toy.
game or a small figurine. but it was like finding a treasure when you dug down to the bottom of the box and pulled out the prize. This excitement made morning cereal more than just breakfast, which is much different than today.
So many boxes.
Opening a beer or soda can in the 1970s was a bit different than what we are used to today. You'd pull the ring back and peel back the aluminum tab. And back then, most of the tabs were just tossed on the ground. These sharp pieces of discarded metal were a nuisance, especially on beaches or places where you might walk barefoot. These pull tabs were just another hazard that we faced, and the tops would change shortly after to the more familiar stay tab that we recognize today. But it was still all part of the fun of living in the 1970s.
Cutting people's feet up.
Last but not least, school lunch in the 1970s wasn't complete without a trusty metal lunchbox and the matching thermos. These lunchboxes not only showed off our favorite characters from pop culture, but they often also had their fair share of rust on them too. Any ding or scratch would quickly rust over, and our parents didn't seem to mind either. Remember the smell of opening a metal lunchbox after a long, hot day? Kids today, with their ice packs and insulated lunch bags, will never fully understand what it was like to grow up in the 1970s. Let me know in the comments if I missed.
That was cool. Completely different way of life, isn't it? And
definitely
a lot of things positive, like in terms of what's changed, but there's also things which you think if you could go back to their simpler time, people were happier and survived. In obviously not everyone, but yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to that life and then life as we know it today. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below, and we'll see you.
Have a fantastic day.
And we'll see you legends in the next one. Peace.